Our military. The fight is on. Over time, we no longer have Social Security. Explodes plans to destroy Social Security and Medicare. Privatization is hugely important. A plan that will reduce our spending 1.2 trillion from Medicare, 2 trillion from Social Security, and over time, we no longer have Social Security. Watch the full videos yourself.
John Bowen would destroy Social Security and Medicare.
No, don't believe all that stuff.
No, they just pointed out the things that he said he wants to do.
Yeah, he wants to have it self-funded, so you keep your own money. And they're saying, well, that will destroy Medicare, but it won't. It's just like an IRA. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
Did you get my message today?
I did, yeah. How you feeling?
I'm all right. I mean, just yuck.
Yeah.
And I didn't get a chance to visit anything, and I don't have the pamphlet. So unless we're shorthanded, I'll listen. But I don't know where I picked it up. We went out to Amherst to watch one of my granddaughters play lacrosse. They tied Yale and got smoked by UMass. And then we went down to Vassar and Poughkeepsie. They had 3 games. They tied 2 and won 1. So that was fun. But we stayed overnight in Enfield, and I was in a restaurant. And that's the only time that I was in an indoor setting with a lot of people. So.
Well, we've been having, it's been a little uptick in it. We've had several employees coming down with it.
And there's, unless you have it really bad, there's not a whole lot of medication. Mucinex that stops the coughing and stuff. But I haven't slept well, but I'm delegated to the guest room and the TV room with microwave dinners.
Nice, huh?
Until Friday.
So you got 5 days, yeah.
Yeah. So you think you'll have a full crew tonight?
I know James is away on business. I think he's in Philadelphia. So we may not, but I mean, we can hear the hearings, but the one that you want to be in on, at least listening to and in visual, is the Maplewood Avenue.
Yeah, the 40B.
Yeah, just so that because that'll go on for 6 or 7 meetings, and
yeah,
so easy for people to miss a few of them, and then next thing you know, we don't have enough.
Yeah. The only one that I thought might bring up discussion was the applicant that wanted to put a structure in front of their house and put a half bathroom in it. Well, he couldn't figure out whether he's building a new building in front of the old
new
building.
House. No, the whole thing is new. And it's over across from Marshall's farm stand. And it's that one where they cut the road way up into the mountain. He's way up top of the mountain.
Oh.
So wherever he puts anything on that property, it wouldn't matter. It's a big piece of property.
Okay.
Acre after acre. And I think more than anything, it's just ledge and where to locate it,
Yeah. Well, lucky him to have all that land.
Yeah, he's the guy, I know the guy, I know of him. He's had it for quite a while, and they finally this past year carved the road up in there. And now getting ready to decide, building the house and where everything is. Hi, Alexa.
I'm covering for Allison. I just want to let you know that it already allowed, just the way it was set up, and I started it to get in, it already allowed the public, so the public is on right now.
No, they shouldn't be. Yeah.
I don't know why it's like that, but I just want to let you guys know that.
Well, we didn't talk about anything controversial.
No. So there's only 3 people on right now. But
I just want to
so when you open it up, you go live at 7, but obviously
and they just emailed me a link to start it. I clicked the link and it started it. So
Yeah, that was the
A little last
start the
minute today.
regular meeting, yeah. All right, we'll try not to swear or anything.
Just wanted to give you a heads up.
I don't know if I can control Lenny.
Thank you. No, I'm okay. I don't swear too often, sometimes. Hi, Bill. You hear us?
He's muted. Hold on, I
Muted,
can
Bill.
mute him.
Let him know that it's live.
I texted him.
Okay, good.
We can't hear you. You're talking, but we can't hear you.
I'm muted. Okay.
I
Hey,
just
now you're
texted
on.
you. Can you read my text?
I read your text, yes.
Okay.
We're live.
How come I
Be
don't
careful.
see you, Alexa?
Cause I just got my camera on.
Joe, Suzanne was asking me about procedures the board would have adopted for a 40B. Do you remember doing that? Do you remember seeing those?
Well, we just have the standard procedure that's spelled out in the 40B handbook.
Right, but she said, according to the handbook, I guess, we were supposed, or the board was supposed to have adopted a local procedures. But I looked everywhere. I can't find them, and I don't remember seeing anything on them.
No, I don't think we ever adopted a procedure. I mean, we've done 4 of them.
Yeah, and I don't remember adopting a procedure. I
No,
think we might have adopted our set procedures as we started, you know, as we went through the process, maybe. I
Yeah.
think we've done that.
I'm gonna just be following the 40B handbook.
Okay,
I mean, that's our normal anyway.
that's what I thought.
Yeah, there's no real difference. Now, did the in-house working group get the copies and notified? I'm under the impression.
Yes, everybody got notified,
Okay,
or at least got sent the link to look at it. I only heard from conservation. And then this morning, Allison's out today, obviously, that's why Alexa's here, but I did forward it because I didn't see on the list the mayor, Jill Cahill, the health director. There was 3 or 4 of them who were on the list. I did forward it to them today to make sure they had access to it too.
all righty. Greg's away, I believe, too.
Yeah, I don't think he's due back till like the 18th or 19th. Next Wednesday, I think he's due back. And I'm not sure what his participation is going to be in this.
Yeah, no, I know he's, I know when Susan's gonna talk to you about who they hire. And I
Yeah.
know Greg had some of the names, whatever, from last time.
Right.
Hi, Catherine.
Yeah.
You're muted, Catherine.
Hi,
Did you get my email?
I did.
Thank you.
So we're just opening the meeting tonight and not taking public testimony, just getting a presentation and,
No, we're, just so you know, we're already live to the public.
yeah,
Right now it got turned on somehow, but, no, we're gonna have our regular agenda and then, we're gonna have a discussion with Susan Egan about procedure. And then we'll open the public hearing and take the presentation. After Joel's presentation, is when I'm gonna call on you for the motion And then we'll take some public testimony, but I'm gonna limit it to maybe 9 o'clock. And then we'll spell out.
All right.
How
Just
much-
so you know, I have to recuse myself from 11 Addison Street.
Okay,
Hi, Rob.
Good afternoon, evening.
evening,
Just so you know, we're live now. Not supposed to be, but we're live, so
so no
behave.
swearing. Catherine, control yourself.
Behave myself. Hi, Alexa. Is Alexa a new employee for the city?
I'm covering for Allison.
Oh, well, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Alexa has worked for us, what, a year and a half, 2 years? A long-
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years. Yeah, she works on it. She's one of the clerks in my office, Kathy.
All right. Nice to meet you, Alexa. Sounds like a little hamster on a wheel.
No, That is,
I think it's Rob Russell's. Let me check. Yeah, it is, because I just muted him for a second and it went away.
Robbie, what do you need, a new fan belt? Or-
No, the couch is probably 200 years old and I moved over. So that might,
There's like a noise coming from you, like a pulley or something, a squeak.
It's like beeping.
oh, okay. Let me shut off I got some other stuff on. Let me shut it off. Is that better?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. I hear it.
I don't hear anything.
I
Well,
think.
Lenny, it was a joke.
I'm not in a joking mood. I feel crummy.
Yeah, well, I offered you to pick me some soup. You didn't want
He's
it.
got COVID, so don't go over his house.
Oh,
Well,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to see any of the properties. I don't have the pass outs because I didn't want to go over to the building department. Marcy said, go over with a mask. I said, they don't work. I'm staying home.
Oh, under that, if you called us, I would have found a way to get it to you, Lenny. Just call us if you can't get there for something like that.
It's not fun, but I'll be okay.
Well, you're in a very elite club. There's an awful lot of people who've had it, so.
Yeah.
Some 2 or 3 times.
So I'm fully vaxxed, but who knows? I have some friends that are anti-vaxxers and they haven't had any problems, so they're giving me a hard time. But they're young bucks. I'm old.
Yeah.
Do you guys still, is the noise out?
Still,
Hear it.
You still hear it?
We hear it.
Yeah.
like interference or something. We'll tolerate it if we have. to.
Yeah. Or you could view and then when you speak.
Okay, good idea. Okay,
Voila, it's gone.
Yep. Haven't heard from Peter. I talked to Michael earlier.
Is Michael coming?
Yeah.
Oh, good, all right. Just so there'll be enough to vote on Addison.
Here comes somebody.
That's Peter. Good, I don't have to find his phone number.
What, you don't have me on speed dial?
Well, I was looking for it. It's on there somewhere.
I know I'm under your favorites.
Yep, everybody's like favorite section, everybody has, do not answer.
I have special rings for that, Bill.
Well, if Michael's son's on, you'll be okay with 5.
Yeah, I know. I talked to him 20 minutes ago, so I know he's coming on.
But I'll hang to the end.
Here's Michael.
Hi, Mike.
Good evening.
Hi, Michael.
And Michael,
Hi there.
Okay, we have everyone, so we're ready to begin. We're already live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of Gloucester Zoning Board of Appeals remote Zoom meeting of October 13th, 2022. This meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with state open meeting law. Consistent with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. All votes taken by the Zoning Board of Appeals during this meeting will be by roll call vote. If you're calling in on a phone and wish to speak, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're working on a computer or device, there's a raise hand button that you can use. This is for the record, Zoom meeting ID 825-6313-9409. I recognize in attendance members of the zoning board, myself, Joe Parisi, Catherine Schlichty, Michael Nyman, Peter Canavo, Len Gillenhall, and Robert Russell. And I declare we have a quorum present. Our first order of business will be the petition of Mark Irwin seeking a side yard variance under 3.2.1 for accessory building to enable petitioner to construct a new accessory building within the right yard setback at 7 Woodbury Street. Alexa, can you bring in
Yep.
Mr. Irwin, please?
Good evening.
Hello. I'll remind everyone, when you come on to speak or present, please give us your name and address for the record. And then if you're the applicant, you can start to tell us about your project.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
Very good. My name is Mark Irwin.
I have a house on 7 Woodbury Street in Lanesville. The house has been in my family since it was built in 1858 by my great-great-grandfather. And he was a stonemason and a teamster. And over time, he had a barn in the front yard, a woodshed outhouse, and chicken coop in the side yard. The house has passed down from the family to my great aunt, Teresa Irwin, my grandfather, John Paul Irwin, my father, and his brother, John Paul Irwin Jr. and David Irwin. And then my mother, Catherine Irwin, and then my sister and I purchased the house in 2010. So we have a long history. I've been coming here since 1962. And for the first 48 years of my life, or the first 38 years of my life, we had a woodshed on the right side yard, left as you're in the street. That woodshed was taken down, tool shed was taken down in 2001 because it was a concern that it was becoming a hazard. And what I'm looking to do is to put a tool shed back on that same foundation and granite walkway that I accompanied some photographs with my application. And we're trying to maintain within the zoning laws the height less than 12 feet. And we just, we'd like to have that tool shed back on the property.
Okay, thank you. So you're asking for a side yard variance for the accessory dwelling. And you're placing it pretty much on that stone foundation that's there. Correct?
Correct.
All righty. Any questions by the board about the project?
No.
All righty. We'll open up to the public for comment. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? You can please raise your hand, and I remind you, if you're on a phone, you dial *9. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Please raise your hand. Anyone in opposition? Seeing none, I'll close the public testimony. There's no need for a rebuttal. Discussion by the board. I know it's, it's certainly far back from the street. There's a lot of vegetation there that separates it from the neighbor, who obviously said no complaint. Any other discussion by the board or questions?
No, I think the way that lot narrows down at the back, there's really not a lot of, it's not really a lot of other locations for the shed, and right, as you said, it's screened from everybody, it's set back from the street. I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, I think the fact that it was there, torn down, 2001, was there for who knows how long, 30, 40, 50 years. I think there's not a precedent per se, but sort of leaning in that direction.
And certainly be a disgrace and a bit of a hardship to, undo all the granite work that's there.
Agreed.
Okay, and no more discussion, we'll accept the motion on the application.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
On the petition of Mark Irwin seeking a side yard variance for an accessory building to enable the petitioner to construct a new accessory building within the right yard setback at 7 Woodbury Street. I think that for the reasons stated, it justifies granting of a variance, and I don't think doing so would be a derogation from the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance. I would move approval of the variance.
Second,
We have a motion made and seconded to approve the variance. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, alternate Gyllenhaal and alternate Russell for this vote.
Go with Russell, please.
Ms. Slipke,
Yes.
Mr. Nyman,
yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
I also vote yes for the variance. It certainly meets the criteria, the hardships required. And I approve that. Mr. Irwin, you've heard our decision's favorable. We'll draft a decision and get that to you as soon as possible. Mr. Sanborn, if you'd stamp and sign those plans on my behalf. And I will write the decision. Okay, moving on. Our next applicant is the petition of Leonard W. Belanti, seeking a side yard variance under 3.2.1 for an accessory building to enable petitioner to construct a carport at 11 Addison Street. I believe the application an ad called for side and rear variance.
So before we get started, I just have a question for Bill Sanborn, I think.
Yes,
I don't understand why we're calling it an accessory structure when it's connected to the house. I mean, it's clearly connected, you know, with a ledger, the roof is coming off from the house. So I don't understand why the rear wouldn't be an extension of a non-conforming, you know, a special permit extension non-conforming, and why the right side actually wouldn't have to be the table, you know, assessed at the principal building extension versus an accessory.
Mr. Nyman, I believe you're correct. It would be in addition to the principal structure.
yeah,
So I
so that's why wouldn't it be a special permit to alter and expand and a right side setback
Yes,
variance?
yes, for a principal building, not the accessory building. Yeah.
Right,
So it's 7.5, not 5. Yeah.
Yeah, so we will for the special permit to alter and expand and a variance for the right side.
okay, that's what we'll be hearing. If we could bring in, I believe it's Chad with Lenny.
Yeah, we're here, Joe. Lenny and I are here.
Yep, go ahead. Name and address for the record, please, and tell us about it.
Leonard W. Belanti, 11 Addison Street.
Okay, so you have a carport. Apparently you've already built it.
I framed up some of it, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm just building this because I've waited almost 2 years for a very expensive car. It's $100,000 car, and because of our bad weather, I just want to be able to protect it. It's basically a glorified cover for me. I'm not doing no plumbing or water in it. I'm just trying to protect the car. That's all I'm trying to do.
Are
I'm
you gonna
not
close
adding.
it in?
Excuse
You're gonna
me?
close it in, right?
I'm gonna close the sides in. I mean, I'll just put if I have to, I'll just put I can put a canvas on the front. I don't need to garage it in and close the door.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I mean, I'm just trying to keep the weather away from it because it's gonna be off the road in another month and a half, depending on when we get our first snow. So
Okay,
I'm not adding anything to it. I'm not going above it. I'm not going to try to store anything in it. It's just going to be, and the reason why the width is because that car it's short lengthwise, but wide. I can't take a chance on opening it's like a cockpit. I need to open the doors wide to get out, and I don't want to be banging those doors. So I just need that room to get it in there and protect it from front, back, and sides. So
sounds like a first world problem. Okay, thank you. Any questions by the board at this time?
What kind of a car is it?
it's a 2022 Corvette.
Oh,
It looks like a Ferrari. The only reason because it looks like a Ferrari. That's why I got it. I have before you guys go any further, if you don't mind, my neighbor who Andy and I, you know, he doesn't live there, but he rents out. He came to my house on crutches and he signed this for me because he looked at it and I showed him and he says, Lenny, I got no problem at all. It's basically, if you see the pictures there, right on his garage, which is basically near the property line itself, but that's been there for, geez, I don't know, longer than all of us have been alive. So, but we've got a really, really good relationship. So he signed it. It's right. I hope you guys have it in front of you and he's all for it. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Alrighty. Okay, we'll take some public testimony. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in favor, please raise your hand. And again, if you're on a phone, it's *9. Anyone in favor? Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application on 11 Addison Street? Anyone in opposition? Again, seeing no opposition, there's no rebuttal. Discussion by the board. I think we've determined that we're going to be going for a special permit to alter and expand and a right side yard variance of 5'5" to leave it 2 feet from the property. Any
The,
discussion?
the neighbor most directly impacted is in favor.
Yep.
The neighbor most directly impacted has a garage 2 feet from his property line or whatever it is. It's right on his property line. There's no other place to put the garage. That is where the driveway is. So I think the hardship is just the location of the house, and there's no other place to put a garage.
Okay, we'll take a motion.
I was worried about that guy.
Catherine's recused on this, so Michael, can you make a motion?
Again. A petition of Leonard W. Belante seeking special permit to alter and expand non-conforming structure and a side yard variance 3.2.1 from the principal building to enable petition to construct a carport. For the reasons that I just stated, I would move approval of the special permit. It is increasing the non-conformity. It's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. And for the reasons that I stated about the variance, I would move approval of the variance as well for the right yard setback.
Motion made. Peter, unmute and second. Thank you. Motion made and seconded on a special permit and a variant. Roll call vote, please.
Alternate would be,
They're all in because Catherine's recused.
oh, you wanted Mr. Gilino? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Oh,
Both.
Oh,
both
I'm
because
sorry.
Catherine's recused.
Yep, sorry. Mr. Nyman,
Yes on the special permit, yes on the variance.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes, on both.
Mr. Gilino,
Yes on both.
Mr. Russell,
Yes on both.
and Mr. Parisi.
I also vote in favor. Lenny, you've heard our decision's favorable. A decision will be drafted, which you'll then be able to get registered and get your building permit. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Thank
And
you.
Mr. Sanborn, if you'd stamp those plans on my behalf, sign on my behalf, and I will write the decision. Okay, next
Joe, you
hearing,
want to, Joe, and however you do that decision, you want to make sure and note the variance that's needed from the 7.5, not the
Yeah,
5. Yeah,
I filled it in on my chart.
Yep.
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 I'm okay.
okay.
Okay, next is the petition of Vincent Mortellaro, trustee of 173 Concord Street, nominee trust seeking a special permit, 2.3.7, section 21, 1.8.3 to install a bathroom in an accessory building, and special permit 3.1.6A for the height up to 35 feet to enable petitioner to construct an accessory structure closer to the street than principal building with a half bath at 173 Concord Street. Representative is Attorney Ellison.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Evening.
Am I going to be admitted as a panelist so that I can share my screen?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I see it.
Alexa, we need to let her in as a panelist, please.
Yep, she is on there as a panelist now.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
Not a problem. For the record, Deborah Ellison, Ellison Law Office, 63 Middle Street, Gloucester. The applicant and owner of the property is Vincent Mortellaro as trustee of 173 Concord Street Nominee Trust. The property is located at 173 Concord Street, and Mr. Mortellaro is on the line tonight. The architect is Jason Gove, and he is also on the call tonight. And so I will share my screen. The applicant requires 3 forms of relief. A variance under GZO 1.7 for an accessory building closer to the street than the principal structure under 3.2.1 footnote C. A special permit under GZO 3.1.6A for a height of 33 feet over the average existing grade. And a special permit for 1 bathroom with a toilet and a sink as a customary accessory use in the barn under GZO 2.3.7 subsection 21 and 1.8.3. The property is 22 acres, and this is an aerial view of the property. It is a little bit surprising that we need all of this relief for a property of this size, that it's only going to have a residence and 1 accessory dwelling. This is the general location where the residence as well as the accessory building will be located. The applicant intends to construct the barn as an accessory structure to the single-family home, and all setback requirements for the barn will be met and greatly exceeded, except that the barn will be closer to the street, Concord Street, than the house will be. Also, there's a need to level the site significantly, and therefore the height of the barn is over the average existing grade and will require a height exception. The applicant would also like to install 1 small bathroom, which will only contain the toilet and a sink. This is the R40 zone, and the lot is approximately 22 acres in size. The principal setbacks are shown here with the dotted line, and you can see that they are all exceeded quite extensively. This shows you the proposed house, and this is the accessory structure. The barn, it's called a barn, but it's actually going to be used as a garage and for storage. There will be no animals housed in the barn. The lot's significantly larger than required, so the lot coverage after both the home and the barn are constructed is 0.66%, which is less than 1% lot coverage. The barn complies with all the principal building setbacks, and the allowed height for the barn as an accessory structure is 30 feet. The proposed barn will be 33 feet, and as I said, will be closer to the street. The house is approximately 575 feet from Concord Street. The barn will be 498 feet from Concord Street. The applicant is also seeking the special permit for the bathroom. I'll begin with the variance first. The accessory structure being closer to the street, the variance should be granted due to the substantial hardship created by the unique characteristics of the property. The barn location is largely driven by the location of the existing driveway, which is intended to serve both the garage and both the home and the barn. The barn will be located off the driveway in front of the house to allow for ease of access between the 2 buildings. Another location would require further clearing on the lot, more site work, and extension of pavement adding to the impervious surface, and the applicant wants to avoid that. The variance doesn't undercut the purpose of the ordinance, because the primary purpose of this ordinance is to prevent construction of accessory dwellings or accessory buildings in the front yard for aesthetic reasons. In this case, the shed is a great distance from the street and likely will not even be visible from the street. It also meets and greatly exceeds all of the dimensional requirements of the principal building. Based on these facts, I would suggest that no substantial harm to the public good will come from this project. The special permit for height is largely a function of, is largely a function of the site and the elevations of the site. So the barn needs to be brought to an elevation of 120 feet, and the average grade of the average existing grade was 109 feet. So it's about 10-foot difference between what the elevation needs to be and what the existing grade was. So before the site work was done to level that area, the property sloped down significantly. You can see that the base of the barn to its peak is 22 feet 8 inches. So it is not really 33 feet. But the way we measure height, it is a 33-foot exception. So we need 3-foot exception from you. The level area is required so that you can easily travel between the two buildings, to create a level driveway so that it will service both the barn and the garage. And because of the significant increase in the elevation, post-construction zoning relief is needed. The height's consistent with the neighborhood. Structure will be approximately 23 feet high. It's not unreasonable for an accessory structure that meets all of the principal setbacks and then some. It will not be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. It's approximately 300 feet away from the nearest neighbor. And there will be no obstructions of views, overshadowing of other properties, or impairment of utilities or other adverse impacts. With regard to the bathroom, as I said, it'll have one toilet and a sink. It's needs a customary accessory use. The applicant intends to conduct agricultural activities such as farming and forest maintenance on this property. And there also will be landscaping activities for which they're going to need to hire workers to assist them because of the size of the property. The bathroom will allow the workers as well as the homeowners to have bathroom facilities available without going into the main house. It's become customary to have bathroom facilities when constructing accessory garages and sheds for convenience. Therefore, the proposed use will be in harmony with the intent and purpose of the ordinance and will not adversely affect the neighborhood, the R40 district, or the city. For this permit, I also need to show that it meets 1.8.3. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. Social, economic, and community needs will be served. The proposed use is consistent with this predominantly rural residential neighborhood. Over 21 acres, the property is large enough to support agricultural activities for the benefit of the homeowner, but assistance will be needed from outside workers and the maintenance of the landscape. Having a bathroom outside will be very convenient for both the workers and the homeowners. Traffic flow and safety will not be impacted because the additional bathroom is for the applicant's home use. The accessory building will be adequately served by city water. There is a private septic system on the property that can accommodate the additional bathroom. The bathroom is consistent with neighborhood character and social structure, which is comprised predominantly of residential properties, many of which have accessory structures. The barn's a substantial distance from the street and the property lines, and the bathroom will not be visible from the outside of the structure. Qualities of the natural environment will not be impacted. As I said, the septic system can accommodate it. It will be located on a large lot with 0.66% in total lot coverage once the home and the barn are built. And the potential fiscal impact will be positive. The project will likely increase the value of the property and add to the real estate taxes assessed. So for all these reasons, I would ask that you grant the variance and the 2 special permits, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions by the board? I have one. Is the footprint that's shown here for the new home definite?
I believe it is. I would
I
have.
mean, because we're granting relationship variances. I'm just,
It's not going to change location.
okay,
Now, whether or not it has a different jog here or there, but it's
No.
not going to change location, no.
no problem with that. Thank you. Any other questions at this time? We'll take public testimony.
Yeah, I'm good.
Anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in favor of the application, please raise your hand. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing no one, oh, one, we do. Tracy O'Neill, please. Can we bring her in, Alexa?
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi, my name's Tracy O'Neill, 12 Friend Street. I'm Ward 2 City Councilor. And I was looking at the drawings, and could I ask how far away from the street is the barn?
it's
You muted, Deb.
498 feet.
298 feet? And is it,
400, yeah.
400? I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's 500 feet away.
Okay. And is it visible from the road?
We don't expect that it will be visible from the road, no.
Okay,
Very doubtful, yeah.
okay. So I would be in favor of this for sure. And that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone in opposition? Please raise your hand. Seeing no one in opposition, there'll be no need for rebuttal. Discussion by the board.
Good project.
Yeah, given the size of the lot, the distance from the street, the utility of the building to the homeowner.
Serious grade issues. I mean, I think that's
Yeah, serious
absolutely true.
grade,
Very serious grade.
grade
issues.
and granite.
And 22 acres too.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with it. I do have one question though, Deb. Aren't accessory buildings limited to 12 feet? So aren't we looking for more than
Not if they meet the principal building.
oh, right, if they meet the
requirements.
principal building setbacks, right? Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? So to be clear, I guess we're looking for two special permits, one 1.8.3 for the bathroom in an accessory structure, one for the height, and then a variance for accessory structure closer to the street. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion on the petition of Vincent Mortellaro, sorry, trustee of 173 Concord Street, Nominee Trust, seeking a special permit for height of an accessory structure, a special permit to add a bathroom to an accessory structure, and a variance to have an accessory structure closer to the street than the principal structure. I'd move approval of all the relief requested. I think for the reasons stated by Deb, I think that it meets the 6 factors. I think, as we've just said, that there's really no harm to anybody. It's a function in a lot of ways of the topography of this lot. And I think the benefit to the homeowner and the neighborhood in general is beneficial. So I'd move approval of the variance and 2 special permits.
I would second the 2 special permits and the variance.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded for 2 special permits and a variance. We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Which
And-
alternate?
Robert Russell will be, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Steve,
Me, yes, on all the relief requested.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes on the 2 special permits and yes on the variance.
and Mr. Parisi.
I also vote yes. You've heard our decisions favorable. We would appreciate a draft decision that we could put to use here. And Mr. Sanborn, if you could stamp and sign those plans on my behalf, that would be appreciated.
I will, sir.
Thank you. Go on. Okay,
I'm getting a lot of background noise. Someone's
yeah, that's,
Go ahead.
you need to mute. Okay, before we move on to the next hearing, I'm first going to ask Suzanne Egan, the city solicitor, to come on and help us with some advice and knowledge for especially people that haven't done 40Bs before, to get us off and started. Suzanne?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. So I'm just here to give you a brief overview about a comprehensive permit, because this is a different type of permitting than the Zoning Board of Appeals is used to doing. A comprehensive permit is the Zoning Board of Appeals acts as a super permitting board, essentially. It reviews the permit the application for affordable housing on behalf of all the local boards and commissions in the community. Chapter 40B is a streamlined permitting process so that for affordable housing projects. And there are certain criteria that the projects must meet in order to proceed for a comprehensive permit before the Zoning Board of Appeals. They have to obtain a project eligibility letter from the subsidizing agency. And that project eligibility letter looks at certain criteria under the statute to make sure that it is appropriate to be able to be filed as a comprehensive permit with the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is a highly regulated area. There are state statutes, regulations, and guidance that control the zoning board's review of the process of the application. And the board has been provided with a copy of the Department of Housing and Community Development's guidebook for Zoning Board of Appeals and reviewing comprehensive permits. And I urge the board members to keep that as sort of a Bible for going through this process, because it's something that is unusual. There you go. That has your time, that lays out your timing and what your authority is and what type of issues that the board can actually review. So the regulations provide that the timing is that the board has to open the public hearing process within 30 days of receipt of the application, which it's intending to do today. There's 180 days for the board to conduct the public hearing process. After the 180 days have concluded, the hearing process must be concluded and the decision must be rendered. The application is sent out to the local boards and commissions and other regulatory officials to review the application, bearing in mind their particular jurisdiction. And then they comment to the zoning board with their concerns and any potential conditions that they may want to suggest that the board impose upon an applicant or an application, a project. The board also may determine that in order to properly review the application, it needs technical assistance. And it has the authority to retain consultants in many areas, such as site design and building design, traffic, stormwater engineering, environmental resources, any of the types of areas that most other boards and commissions would use in order to review a permit. Since what you're doing is you're taking all of the local regulations and saying, we're going to look at this application and apply those local regulations. And so if you need that assistance from consultants, which other boards and commissions might typically use, you have that authority to retain those technical consultants. The comprehensive permit application is not bound by the local regulations. So the board doesn't have the authority to deny an application because the project does not comply with the local sort of zoning regulations or planning regulations. What it does is it takes those regulations and reviews those and looks to see whether or not this project meets and is consistent with local needs and concerns in terms of the regional need for affordable housing and also the local concerns of public health and safety. So it's not as strict as your typical zoning board of appeals review process where you're looking at density dimensional and you have your strict criteria. It's more of a broader review where you're going to rely, where the board is advised to rely on your technical consultants to provide advices to the project and how it complies with industry standards and public health and safety concerns. So because this is a highly regulated area, it's a time-intensive application for the board, that my office is going to retain outside counsel of somebody who has that particular expertise in the area of comprehensive permits. And so I will also assist the board in answering any of your questions. And so you'll have that assistance as you move forward with this project. But in terms of the public hearing process, that you conduct the public hearing process as though it's any other public hearing. The applicant is entitled to the same due process considerations as an applicant for a variance or a special permit. Other than that, when we get to particular areas of where you need technical assistance or particular areas of the rules and regulations that may require more guidance, I will be available to help you answer those questions. But I think for now, I think we can leave this now for the applicant to proceed or the board to proceed for the public hearing, unless you have any specific questions.
Suzanne, how will the local boards communicate with us? Will they come before us and test it? Give us their opinions or their needs? How do we communicate?
Well, typically what happens is that the local boards or commissions will review the project. They could hold a public, they'll add a public meeting, and then they will provide a written sort of response to the board that can be incorporated into the board's review. But in some instances, some of the boards and commissions may want to attend a zoning board meeting and engage in a dialogue with this board.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. And I will now, our next hearing is the petition of William Wheat seeking a comprehensive permit pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, to construct a 30-unit apartment building of rental housing, of which 8 units, 25%, are to be affordable at 50 rear Maplewood Avenue. The petitioner is seeking waivers from dimensional requirements and use allowance of the extensive business EB zoning district as defined in the Gloucester zoning ordinance, along with waivers from the rules and regulations of other regulatory boards and commissions of the city of Gloucester. Attorney Favazza is presenting.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
before we go to Attorney Favazza, for the record, I would just like to note on the record that the application was timestamped and received by the city clerk on September 20th, 2022. And the application does include a letter from the, 1 second, I'll give you the correct. From Mass Housing, Massachusetts Housing Finance Agency, declaring that they have met their needs to go forward with 40B.
thank you. Alexa, can you make Joel, Attorney Favazza, a panelist, please?
All set.
And I ask, do you need to bring anyone else in at this time, Attorney Favazza?
No, sir.
All righty. You can proceed.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone tonight. I'm going to share my screen.
Hey, Joel.
Hey.
Yeah, Michael Nyman, before we get started,
Sure thing.
I want you to be aware that I live fairly close to this location, live at 20 Myrtle Square. So I'm essentially across the street from abutters. So I'm very comfortable hearing this application. But I'm also aware that you or your applicant may not be comfortable with somebody like me living so close. So I feel like I'm just sort of volleying back to you that if for any reason you with your applicant don't want me to hear this, I'm happy to recuse. I don't personally need to recuse, but I will recuse if you feel that I should.
I can answer that. Obviously, Mr. Nyman's had, vast experience on this board. I'm confident, my client's confident that he can be impartial despite his proximity to this project. So we have no issue with Michael Nyman remaining on this.
Okay.
Thank
well,
you.
good. Yep.
Okay. Now
Okay.
screen. All right. Good evening. For the record, my name is Joel Favazza. I am an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, address of 123 Main Street in Gloucester. I am here on behalf of William Wheat. People know him locally as Bill Wheat. He is the owner of 50R Maplewood Avenue. He is also, just for reference, the owner through a separate entity, the owner of 50 Maplewood Avenue, which is known as the car wash site next door to this particular locus. And as was stated tonight, we're seeking a comprehensive permit looking to construct a 30-unit apartment building at 50R Maplewood Avenue, construction of pedestrian access to and from Maplewood Avenue, from this project and a reconfiguration of traffic flow on adjacent commercial property. The reason those last two bullets are there is just to kind of comprehensively talk about what the project would look like on the ground. The relief being sought or the waivers being sought apply to the first bullet itself. So my client acquired this property just about 2 years ago, and we've been working with the city for the last 2 years, trying to figure out how to bring some affordable housing to this property. We are in the extensive business district, and no residential use is allowed in the extensive business district, despite the fact that, including the car wash property right next door, there are already apartments in this area. We also have an issue that Whistle Stop Way, although it shows up on the city street listings and it shows up on the assessor's maps and on the city GIS, it may not be, or at least the full length of it may not be accepted as this by the city as a recognized roadway, and that obviously impacts the ideas of access and frontage. And then generally the shape of the lot is a little weird. See, it's long and narrow. It's highlighted in yellow there on the right hand side of your screen. And so we've explored various avenues. We actually originally proposed an overlay district that would have allowed for blended uses across the several EV properties in the neighborhood. I think we had 3 or 4 meetings with the planning board on that, kicked it around, made some revisions. But given that the planning board has been working on a few different proposals relating to Railroad Avenue since about 2015, and as the city is also going to be wrestling with the transit overlay district requirements coming down, it wasn't the right time for yet another overlay to be put onto these properties. And so we realized that the only way to get residences onto this property without rezoning it, which wouldn't be appropriate because it's otherwise a mixed use community. We wouldn't want to make it just R5, which is what you would need. And as I said, because there's really no appetite to get an overlay district affecting the greater area at this time, the way to get residences onto this property is through 40B. 40B requires that the residences or a portion thereof become restricted as affordable. And that's actually one of the goals my client has, period. And he's not looking to create additional high-end housing here in Gloucester. He's trying to find some available workforce housing. He has a few apartment buildings in town as it is, and he understands kind of the struggle that a lot of Gloucester residents or would-be Gloucester residents are facing, trying to find clean, safe, affordable housing. And he's trying to provide that here with his property. So as Attorney Egan just stated, a comprehensive permit has certain requirements. One is that you have to restrict a portion of the units as affordable. We're proposing that 25%, which is 8 units, would be restricted as affordable. And those affordable units have to be restricted to households that do not exceed 80% of the area median income. We are looking to lower that threshold, meaning that these families have to be at or below 60% of the area median income. As this board may be aware, area median income for Gloucester includes communities like Boston and Cambridge, which sort of inflates what the area median is. So by reducing this down to 60%, which is considerably lower than my client would otherwise be required to do, he's hoping to really make sure that these apartments pull in people who need an affordable housing unit. As Attorney Egan also mentioned, the whole idea behind a comprehensive permit is for streamlined permitting. And I hope that we are able to accomplish some streamlined permitting through this process. And as she mentioned, you are entitled to grant the local approvals and necessary relief. As far as eligibility, the owner has already gone through the process with making sure the state has deemed this project eligible, which it has. In applying to the state, the city was asked to provide feedback. The city, through its planning department, wrote a written response to the state in which had some concerns or some requests. And the state, despite the concerns, granted the eligibility anyway. Since then, my client has further refined this project to try and accommodate and respond to as many of those city concerns as possible. So the design before you tonight is actually a revised design from what was originally sent and approved by the state, and the state has since looked at this revision and said this is also, fine by them. Mass Housing has also performed an on-site inspection, and as I mentioned, it meets the affordability requirements. And so, per usual, the relief requested that I'm asking tonight, instead of giving you a long list of variances and special permits, it's just a comprehensive permit pursuant to 40B. These kind of show you some of the waivers we'll be looking for: residential use in the extensive business zone. We're looking to reduce minimum lot area per dwelling unit, open space per dwelling unit. We're looking to reduce some dimensional requirements. We're looking to reduce some off-street parking spaces. I want to be clear that even if the waivers that are requested are granted as part of a comprehensive permit, the proposal still has to comply with all state and federal laws, which includes the Wetlands Protection Act, the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance, and any applicable building codes. So the comprehensive permit you would give, again, streamlined, does not mean that we can kind of run roughshod over every regulation that would normally apply to a development of this size. It just helped us get through the planning and zoning portion, hopefully in a streamlined fashion. This is just a copy of the table that was submitted with the application, and it's spelled out here. These are the waivers that would be requested. And two of the waivers are, I think two of the waivers are a little tricky because the board at some point before they decide what waivers to grant needs to decide or receive guidance from the city as to the official answer on some of these. One is lot frontage. So if the northerly property line, which is the line that runs along Whistle Stop Way, if that's considered a front property line, then we have 88 feet of frontage and no waiver is necessary. However, if the city does not recognize that northerly property line along Whistle Stop Way as a quote unquote front property line, then we need a 65-foot waiver because we technically have 0 feet if that doesn't count as, legitimate frontage. Front yard, same thing. If the northerly property line is a front property line, then we're okay. But if not, I don't know how you measure what our front yard setback is if we have no front yard. And so I put the 15 feet there as a, precaution. And if that's a determination of the board, then we would, provide that. Right side yard, a waiver of 2.5 feet. Again, we're using a setback of 7.5 and we're only 5 feet off the property line. Not having a quote unquote front property line, we're using that northerly property line to decide where right and left are. So it would be the back of the building, we consider the right side yard, and that's where you need this 2.5 foot waiver. Percentage of vegetative cover, that's another tricky one. Again, if the front property line exists, then we're required to have 65% of that front yard setback vegetated cover, and we're only providing 45%, so we need a waiver. If you say there is no front property line, then I don't know that we need to provide vegetative cover because it's only in the front yard setback. So we really got to determine, and by we, I mean you, you really need to determine along with those advising you whether or not this northerly property line is considered frontage. That will dictate whether these yes or no permits are actually, or waivers are actually required, but they're all listed here so that you know the full extent of the waivers that we might potentially need. Then there's open space per dwelling unit, lot area per dwelling. Those typically in multifamily developments go to the city council. So this board doesn't typically grant that, but again, due to the streamlined process, you would be granting the reduction in open space and lot area per dwelling unit. And then off-street parking, you want to be clear that only a waiver of 8 spaces. There are 30 units, but in the EB district, you need one. To the extent that residences are in the EB, despite not being allowed, you need 1.5 spaces. Unlike the R5, in which you only need 1. So if this was an R5 parcel, 30 units requires 30 spaces. Instead, we have again, I think 37 spaces for 30 units. Which means a waiver of 8 spaces. So still a lot of parking on site, more than the R5 would require, but we are in the EB, so we have this 1.5 standard. So this is the site itself. Again, we are at 50 Maplewood Avenue. The site's about 1 acre large. We're in the EB zone. You can kind of see how it's surrounded by the train tracks, Mr. Wheat's other property, Whistle Stop Way, and then the Whistle Stop Way development. I'm just going to rotate this view so you can hopefully remain the orientation. The rest of the plans submitted use this as the orientation. north is to the right on these plans. This is the existing conditions. Hopefully you've all had a chance to go out there. Right now, despite my client's best efforts, this property is used as an unofficial mattress and air conditioner disposal ground. Around 1 a.m. you can expect vans to pull up and gross mattresses to be thrown on my client's property, you know, usually at least one a week. So this property isn't doing a whole lot right now, besides costing my client a lot of money in DPW disposal fees. This is the proposed site layout. And if there's any questions going forward, I also have a zoomed in picture of the traffic flow in and out, which includes the offsite improvements on the car wash lot. The rest of this is just the plans, you know, planting plan that you've been provided already. As you can see, wherever possible, you know, where it's not the building and not mandatory parking areas, it's grass, it's trees, and then even the fire truck turnaround, trying to use some pervious pavement material over there, so it's not all just asphalt. These are the floor plans. I want to pause here real quick. They're technically called studio units, but I want to be clear that there is division between the dining and cooking area and what would be the bedroom. It's just that because there's no separate living room, it's considered architecturally a studio, not a one bedroom. But you know, you walk in the front door of these apartments, you'll see the dining area, the food prep area. You won't see into the bathroom, you won't see into the bedroom as long as doors are shut. But because there is no separate living area besides the bedroom, it's technically considered a studio. And then we have three bedroom units also being shown, two on the upper floor and one on the first floor. Those are the ones that are in green. Renderings that were submitted. Come back to any of these if you have any questions, I'll go through them. And so the standard to be applied, this is a little tricky, but the focus is granting a permit when it's consistent with local needs. And one of the ways that 40B, and I think probably the manual that Attorney Egan has given you probably talks about, is one to look to see if the community has a housing production plan. The city of Gloucester does. And so we went through the housing production plan, which was done in 2017. There was 10 goals stated. 5 of them didn't really apply to project specific things like we're proposing, but of the 10, 5 kind of, you know, spoke to what we're doing here. So I don't want to say that this is incompatible with the other 5. What I'm saying is the other 5 were like, you know, amending the zoning ordinance to make housing easier to develop, that sort of thing. That's really just not applicable to what we're doing here. But of the 5 that applied, we think we meet and are in line with what the housing production plan was calling for. So as far as creating opportunities to develop a diverse housing stock, as I'm sure you know, most residential development in Gloucester for the past decade or probably longer has been overwhelmingly high end. There are exceptions. There's the Cameron's project. There are the city council mandated affordable units at the Halyard apartments, but otherwise the Halyard apartments are not an affordable apartment complex. They're fairly nice units and they're, you know, fairly expensive. All 30 of these proposed units are going to be pragmatically affordable, regardless of whether they are, you know, restricted, cap affordable, or just, you know, by being a transit-oriented small one bedroom. This is affordable workforce housing. So this meets goal 1 pretty succinctly. Goal 2, encourage affordable housing to achieve and maintain the 10% 40B goal. As you know, the state has decided that every community should strive to have at least 10% of its housing stock dedicated to affordable housing. Gloucester isn't quite there, but this adds 30 units toward that 10% goal. Again, 8 of them will be capped at 60% of the area median income. The rest will be what we call little a affordable, not legally technically affordable, but actually, if you are a school teacher who is, you know, in your 2nd or 3rd year working here, you can afford to rent one of these apartments. If you are, gosh, even firemen, starting police officers, unless you're able to like sneak every bit of overtime possible, your salary qualifies you for the affordability component. And these would be apartments where you'd be able to, again, even if you don't go into the restricted apartment, pragmatically with the money you're earning, be able to live comfortably in one of these apartments. Goal 4 was identify sites that are most appropriate. So again, this lot's currently unproductive. I think it used to be a rail yard years ago. And converting this lot, obviously puts it into action. This lot is steps away from the MBTA station, which encourages transit-oriented living, which is great. It's also within walking distance to the downtown, Shaw's, and other local retail shops and restaurants. And it's also located near other higher density residential developments. So if you really quickly kind of zoom out, I put the green star on this parcel. Right across the street, you basically have the Gloucester Mill. That's a 4-story building that has 70 units of housing in it. Right next door to that is Willowwood Gardens. That's 60 units spread across multiple buildings. You back out a little more, you have the Sheedy building. It's a 5-story tower with 81 units, and McPherson Park building. That's a 6-story tower with 97 units. And those are all within short walking distance to this project. So this is, kind of been identified by the city as an appropriate place for dense housing. Again, most likely due to the fact that it's on large, well-maintained roads, right next to the train station, walkable to amenities. You don't need to drive to get what you need to live around here. Goal 7 is minimize displacement of lower income households. Well, this actually does the opposite. We're displacing no existing housing, period, and we're adding 30 units of affordable housing here. And then goal 8 was promote safe, healthy housing and living. The 2017 study actually referred back to a 2015 study where basically Gloucester identified affordable housing as the most critical problem for the city's low-income population. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 1 out of every 2 Gloucester households are rent burdened, meaning that the percentage of their income that they spend in rent is excessive. And again, this promotes safe, healthy housing and living in that this will be a brand new building, all modern fire codes, electrical codes, plumbing codes, stretch codes, etc. These will be great little units that will be actually affordable. Other highlights, we're offering that there'll be a prohibition against short-term or transient leasing. All leases will have to begin as a 1-year lease. They can then go down to a month-to-month for tenants to stay on for longer than 1 year. And there'll also be prohibition in those leases from people subletting or on a short-term basis, Airbnb, that sort of thing. Energy efficiency is a big goal here. We're going to put solar panels on that roof. We're going to use high efficiency HVAC and tankless water heaters. There's going to be a fully sprinkler building, and as you saw from that large parking area, it has adequate access for all of the Gloucester Fire Department's vehicles and equipment. And it's going to address the drainage on site. As you know, there's historic drainage issues over on these properties. About 15, 20 years ago, a lot of work was done that solved some of the problems, but still not perfect. This is another opportunity to go in and further address these issues while the on-site drainage is being edited. And as I mentioned earlier, there'll be off-site improvements to 50 Maplewood Avenue. I won't go through all of them, but you did receive in your application package local support letters. Again, it's anywhere from current tenants of my applicant who see on a daily basis the quality of his stewardship of the properties. You have local business owners, you have local realtors, you have just other Gloucester residents who either themselves are looking for this sort of housing to be available to them or have friends, family, and loved ones who would benefit from this sort of housing. I'm going to just flip through these. They're all in your package, but I think it's, I don't know how often letters of support come rolling in before we even get to these hearings, but it was really nice to see an outpouring of support from people when they were discussing this project. So these are the suggested next steps. And again, as Suzanne Egan stated, it is your show. You can ask for guidance, recommendations from their board and our city staff. I will say we've already gone to Conservation Commission. This got put on their agenda last week, and they're going to send you a letter. They're basically going to say, and again, let the letter speak for itself, but the letter is going to basically say, this project needs an NOI, a notice of intent anyway. So we'll review this project when it comes back to us for an NOI. And it only goes back to them for an NOI if I'm successful here getting through the ZBA with a comprehensive permit. So after you get whatever guidance recommendations you're looking for, you take your vote. Again, hopefully we can do better than 180 days. 40B, I think, is geared typically for larger projects than this. I think this is a pretty small, 40B. This isn't 300 units of housing. This isn't a 7-story tower. This is, a pretty basic piece of housing on a pretty understandable lot. So hopefully we can get through this in less than 180 days. If we're successful here, getting a comprehensive permit, as I mentioned, we go to the Conservation Commission for an order of conditions. And then if successful at Concom, we'd be at a building permit application stage. And so again, it's up to the ZBA how you want to do this, but I would kind of offer that because this is a fairly basic proposal, because this is a fairly understandable lot in a developed area, you know, this third-party review stuff, we're going to have architectural code review as part of the building permit application if we're lucky enough to get that far. We're also going to have engineering review. You know, you can't build a building in Gloucester without stormwater drainage being managed. And also the Concom is going to do stormwater management also. So again, it's up to the ZBA whether you want to go through that now, but you have these safeguards in place. Again, this is not, a comprehensive permit does not allow us to run roughshod over all the other requirements for constructing a building, just streamlines some of the permitting. So it's up to you whether you want to have engineering review the stormwater now, or whether you'd have it reviewed in due course like you would any other building that you would typically permit. For those taking notes, again, these are the waivers, and obviously all these slides I can make available. And the only last thing I want to talk about is conditions suggested. If this board is to ultimately approve this, we would suggest that you would condition your approval that the offsite improvements at 50 Maplewood Avenue have to be performed, that we, per their request and frankly per the law, an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission is given. You should condition it that cross easements with the car wash lot are given. Obviously, we want to have pedestrians walking on this new sidewalk that's going to be built through the car wash lot. We also want the car wash clients to come in through a new dedicated entrance to keep traffic safer. Those require easements. And we'd also look for condition against short-term transient rentals. You know, as I stated, we're offering that as a condition, and we hope you would make that a condition of any approval. That was long. That was 50 slides. I appreciate the patience. I'll stop here and take any questions you might have at this time.
Okay, so just for the record, when we received the application, it was forwarded to Planning Board, Concom, Board of Health, Water Department, Public Works, Police Department, Fire Department, Building Inspector, for their review and comment. We haven't received anything yet. And to Len's question, those typically come in and get forwarded to us from each one. Sometimes different departments choose not to render any opinion, but we typically within a month, we would know if they were going to or have giving us feedback through Mr. Sanborn of whether they're going to weigh in. So that group has, like I say, they have their information and we're waiting to hear. We have typically had third-party peer review of different aspects of a project like this when we've done them in the past. And it's been recommended that we do that again for several areas. I guess my first question before we hit that list is, who owns this, what's apparently a street? Is it a public street?
So Whistle Stop Way is a private road. It is owned, so like any private road, it's owned by the abutters to the center line. So through the length of the car wash lot, my client through his LLC owns the fee under that. Through the frontage along this lot, my client owns the fee in that, and it's obviously subject to the rights of others to pass and repass. But there's no evidence I can find that it was ever taken as a public road. And Mr. Sanborn might chime in. It's unclear whether even as a private road, it's recognized as more than a right of way and actually recognized as a road for the city. It's on the city street listings, it's on the maps, but you know, Mr. Sanborn might be able to elaborate more as to why it's.
I would, through the chair, if I may, I would request that Joel provide some type of legal document to show that. My memory says that that was constructed It may have been a dirt path that was there, but when Whistle Stop Mall was constructed, that was constructed as part of Whistle Stop Mall. And it'd be the same as similar to roads or driveways that go through Gloucester Crossing. They're not really right of ways, they're just ways to pass through the project. Which is going, and his findings on that will determine how we would determine if there is actually frontage on there or not. So we do need to know where legally, how that was developed. If it was developed as part of the property and internal roads to the property, or if they were considered right of ways.
Joel, did you say it's on a street listing?
Yeah, Whistle Stop Way is on the city's street listing. So what I can tell you, and I'll certainly put this in writing, there's a historic right of way shown on plans that basically goes as far as this lot. It does not show that right of way continuing through what is now the Whistle Stop Mall and ending out over by the Azorian. But the right of way from Maplewood Ave in through where this rail yard was, that right of way has been established on plans dating back decades. And so I'm happy to provide a write-up of that.
Catherine, in answer to your question, yes, it does show up on street directories, so doing a lot of other ones, but it's more shows up for 911 and emergency personnel for finding locations rather than listing it as any type of a way.
Okay, thank you.
Also, oh, go ahead, Catherine.
Well, I was just gonna go to the consultant thing a little bit if I might. I mean, overall, I'm glad to see a project coming in down on this piece of lot, this kind of infill lot. I do have some concerns, and I do think I don't know if it's fair to put it all on the city to review, like, for example, the drainage plans, or whether the construction meets code requirements and that kind of stuff. So I myself would be leaning towards having this consultant having the applicant have some consultants for the board so that we can have a third party, neutral party kind of come in and review some things. So I just wanted to kind of pipe in on that. I mean, I was trying to read the plans myself, like the drainage plans, because we've all been down there. I mean, we've all kind of see how it floods back there. I know a lot of it's not on your client's property, but there still is kind of that flooding issue down there, which needs to be addressed. And there's some other issues. So I just for myself would be inclined to, and I think it would expedite the process for all of us if we could have a review by some consultants that can submit some of their feedback to us on it. So I would not be in favor of waiting till after for the city to do those reviews.
And it's for the board's benefit, so we have the right to request consultants in a number of areas. One, there was no traffic study for any impact. And we don't even know the condition of the road, so that would be one. Obviously, the engineering, I mean, this is a troubled piece of part of the city, major flooding over the years. I know it's gotten better, but the city's engineering department will be looking at the plans, and they did provide, I think it's Hancock or whoever it was that did the assessment and the engineering, but a third-party review is definitely warranted. We can discuss each one on its own merit, and we'll have to vote on which ones we're going to require. I think I sent Catherine over a list of what was recommended. Can you go down that for us?
Traffic, stormwater design, stormwater design review, like code compliance, and civil engineering. Those were the ones. Environmental concerns.
Was there one for the earth, quality of the earth? Or-
That was the environmental resources.
No, I meant structurally. I thought there was one.
Yeah, there was
The
review of
engineering.
building and site, right? So that was
Yeah.
like code stuff.
Yep.
Joel, I just have one, you said so originally when you submitted this to Mass House, it was for 24 units and it's gone up to 30. So they have reviewed that and said, that's fine, the 30 is fine and still meets. Okay, so I
Yes.
guess we'll need that update to what we have for records too, but.
Sure.
Do you want general thoughts right now, or are we gonna wait?
Well, we have to make a motion to vote on what
Consultants?
peer review we're gonna require.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yeah.
Yes,
I have a quick talk with the city engineer, and he's in favor of somebody who will do a stormwater review of which would include the entire area. The flooding that happens down there is not off of one certain property. It's off of multiple, it comes from quite a bit of section of the city. So how it has to be dealt with is very critical. It affects all the properties in the area. A lot of the flooding right now is controlled through pumps, which are dependent upon electricity. So power in a storm, power goes out. I'm sure we've all tried to get behind McDonald's when the flooding occurs, and it's severely deep. You cannot get through there with a vehicle. So we are concerned with flooding. We also know from past history, the soils in this area are not very good. The 7-Eleven building that was there at one time had to be demolished and rebuilt because of settlement problems, which a number of times McDonald's has had to replace their walkways around the building from settlement. So we're going to be really concerned with the soil conditions that we require that we have somebody who has some expertise in reviewing those charts. Traffic was another issue. There was no traffic study, as you pointed out, being that there's only one way in and we're not sure of the access route, whether it's even a legal right of way to access through. Traffic has got to be taken into consideration to have 30 units dumping with one way out and either going to a private property or being put onto Maplewood Avenue. So there is a large traffic concern too.
so we've prepared a list. In the form of
Stormwater
a
review.
motion.
Stormwater review, design review, environmental review, traffic study. I assume the fire department's gonna do the fire review.
Right, yep.
Planning board is gonna do site plan review and get back to us.
No, I think site planning is on there. I can't bring it up right now on my screen, but
Yeah, traffic, environmental resources, stormwater, and design review of buildings. I assume that is code compliance.
Right, that would probably be done. We'd probably look at a civil engineer who has experience in these fields to cover those areas. So it would probably, depending on the severity of things, be one civil engineer who will come in and review the site plan, review the stormwater for the area, and also review the soil testing. That's one where he may want to go to a specialty on, considering how poor the soils are in that area.
Now, how are and Joel, I just want you to, just so you don't think we're being unfair to your client, these are the same requirements we put on the YMCA actually when they came in and with their 40B. We did have consultants come in and review various aspects of the proposal for us, but you had a question? I'm sorry.
So just, I just wanted to respond to Bill's suggestion. I think he's right. I think a civil engineer can handle probably several of these. And we certainly have additional information. So we'd be able to, either through the chair or through city legal, provide the geotechnical information we have and basically all the studies that we've already conducted on site, so that any engineers that are hired will be able to review measurements that have already been taken rather than having to go out and start doing, core drilling themselves, that sort of thing. And then let them, so I just want to let the board know we have done a lot of this homework. And so a third party review is fine. We actually would be able to provide initial information for them to begin analyzing as soon as one was brought on board.
Exactly. Third party, just to clarify for the board, the engineers that will be hired as third party reviewers will be reviewing information. They won't be gathering and collecting the information themselves. They're just going to assure that standard practices are met and that the they appear they've solved the problems that we're looking to have solved. If there's questions, they will send it back for the applicants, each professional engineer to go out and answer the questions that they may rise from.
So if they need additional engineer, they would go to the applicant and say, we need additional information.
Through the
Correct.
city. Yeah.
Okay.
Through the city, yes.
And also,
we-
I can offer to coordinate it with Attorney Favazza, that third-party review and working out the scope, and having that communication happen between meetings so that the board, to expedite the review process and to make sure that at each board hearing, you have the answers to the questions that you may have from the previous meeting.
Okay, so I'm ready for that motion so that we
All right,
can
Mr. Chair. I'll-
legally get this process going.
Okay, Mr. Chair, on the basis of the application submitted, I would move that the board has determined that technical advice is needed in the areas of civil engineering, traffic, environmental resources, stormwater, design review of the buildings and the site, and that the applicant be directed to pay for the cost of the third-party consultants.
Motion made
Second,
and seconded. Roll call vote on that condition?
Which alternate were we?
I think we're on one.
Use Rob for now.
Okay, Mr. Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Flippy,
Yes.
Mr. Nyman,
yes.
Mr. Canavo,
I vote yes.
yes? Peter, I'm sorry, was that a yes?
I said I vote yes on those
Okay.
conditions.
Sorry, thank you.
No, thank you.
And Mr. Parisi,
I also vote yes. So that'll go forward coordinated with the Mr. Sanborn and Attorney Egan to hire those consultants, consolidating when they can, and working with the Attorney Favazza on that. Now I'd like to continue on and so our schedule, we're going to take some public testimony tonight. We'll open the public hearing. It'll go on over the time that we hear this. At some point it'll end, but as we get more information, more people may want to comment in favor or against. Keeping in mind our schedule, we only have one meeting in November and one in December. If we make some good progress, I have no problem calling a special meeting. I know everyone's been very cooperative with that in the past. So I'm expecting us to be able to complete this one way or another in a more reasonable time. So going forward, I'd like to open up the public testimony portion, and we'll ask anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application to please raise your hand. Anyone in favor? I remind everyone in the audience to give your name and address for the record, and then give your reasons. I'm not going to set any time limit at this time, but if it gets out of hand, we will probably go with 3 minutes or something, but if everyone can kind of keep it to that. So our first hand raised is Alicia DeHai. Alexa, can you turn her on?
Hello,
Hello?
you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm not against the project.
Name and address, please.
Oh, Alicia DeHai, 250 Western Avenue, Gloucester.
Okay,
Okay,
so this portion is for people in favor, so
okay, well, I guess I'm in favor of it, but there's 3 points. One was the concern about the water flow. I have a friend who's 90 years old. We actually drove back there, and she told me there was a pond. That area was a pond where all the neighborhood kids used to skate on. You could see the marsh reeds against the fence. So a good portion of it was pond and a good portion of it was swamp around the pond. And that's, I think, part of where the major problem lies as far as more water being added to the area. in addition to the city's streets, perhaps maybe draining on the incline into that back lot. My second concern was the number of units. And the third concern was to make sure that I read, and I can't find it tonight, somewhere in the Gloucester zoning for 40B projects, that 70% of the 40B has to be rented to Gloucester residents. We desperately need housing for Gloucester residents. And that's about it.
Thank you. Next up is Jen Holmgren.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Jennifer Holmgren, 385 Magnolia Ave. And I want to just say I'm speaking in support of this application. I've spoken with Mr. Wheat several times over the years, both as a former city councilor and as a private citizen, as he's worked with the city to try to make something more of this property. And I appreciate his sincere commitment. We need more affordable housing, especially, and Mr. Wheat's offering 8 units at 60% AMI responds to the need of an often overlooked middle income demographic. This development will provide a crucial housing opportunity here in Gloucester, and I'm grateful to Mr. Wheat for sticking with it. And again, I support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Fred Allen Stoddard. Sir, you're muted.
There we go. Hi, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Fred Stoddard. I live at 12 Cherry Street. I also rent here at 50 Maplewood at the car wash building. I'm in favor of this, and a couple of points I'd like to make. I've known Bill for about 4 years. I know he's been working very hard on this a lot. The Whistle Stop Way issue, I know buses use it as a cut through. They sit there and wait to come through Whistle Stop. So I don't know if that makes it a public way or not. It's probably above my pay grade. Let's see. The 7-Eleven flooding in the back there, I'm aware that is more the pump that is in the sewer system behind the 7-Eleven that is non-operational, which keeps that flood water sitting there for mosquitoes and seagulls and whatnot. Mattresses and TVs for sure. And back there, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm so nervous. Mattresses and TVs for sure back there. And a couple of homeless, I guess, hanging out back there. I'm very much in favor of this, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is just known as Zoom user. You come in and identify.
Hello?
Yes.
Hey, how you doing? Good evening. My name is Arad Abaric. I live in 50 Maplewood Avenue, and I also work at the car wash. I manage the car wash, and I'm 100% in favor of this project. And I've known Bill for about 4 years, and he's a good man, and I'm in favor 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Favazza, you had your hand up on the other side of the fence here. Did you want something?
I got kicked off the panel by accident, so just trying.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Patrick R.
Hi, good evening. I just want to say I'm currently.
Name and sir, can you give me a name and address, please, first?
You got it. Sorry about that. Patrick Reif. I'm at 96 Woodward Avenue.
Thank you.
And just want to say I'm currently a tenant of one of Bill Wheat's properties, and just wanted to attest as far as his character as a landlord. He's a stand-up guy. He's explained a lot to me about the project and what his dream is here to build. And what I know of Gloucester, having lived here for almost 10 years on and off, affordable housing is definitely in shortage. I moved back here about 3 years ago, and to find something under $2,000 in this town is nearly impossible. They're there, but you really got to hunt. But anyway, I'm in favor of the project, and I hope it goes forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, Peter Lane.
Good evening. Peter Lane, 89A High Street, Rockport, and also a property owner in 16 Marchant Street in Gloucester. I worked with Bill in the purchase of the car wash building and also in the purchase of this lot. And I submitted a letter in support of the project, which I don't know if you want me to read through it or if you've read through it.
We do get all of them, and we have them and they're available online to everyone also.
Okay.
You're free to, but you don't have to.
Okay, so in addition to that, I just wanted to point out that I did a quick search of available apartments listed in the multiple listing service for Gloucester yesterday. And there were 11 apartments listed, only 3 year-round apartments, 8 seasonal or weekly apartments. The lowest apartment available was a 2-bedroom apartment for $2,200 a month. The next lowest was $3,200, and the last one available was $3,450. So there's really a strong need for what Bill is proposing with this project, some affordable, decent new apartments. And just in, I mean, we get calls every day, people looking, and it's people of all ages, it's elderly people, young people. So it really is a strong need, and I'm hopeful that this project moves forward. You know, you have the appropriate reviews, and hopeful it will pass, and I guess that's about all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, the letter says the rest of it.
Yep. Very good. Next up is Zoom user. I don't hope it's not the same one. Who is this? You're muted.
Hello?
Hi. Did you already
Hi.
speak?
Yes, I spoke already, yes.
Okay, you're all set then. Next up is Deanna Fay. You need to unmute. When you folks get pulled in, you get muted and you have to unmute.
Sorry about that. This is Deanna Fay. I live at 3 Barbary Lane. And I also sent in a letter of support, so I won't read the whole thing, but I'm just going to point out a couple of points that I made in the letter. One is that I believe it's absolutely critical that Gloucester add affordable housing stock, both deed restricted affordable housing and housing that's just more affordable to the incomes of local residents and workforce. This project will provide 30 much needed new apartment rentals with 25% of the units, that's 8 in total, including 1 3-bedroom unit, as deed restricted at 60% AMI. This is an important point because the minimum requirement for a developer for a 40B is 80% AMI. So this deepened affordability opportunity is really a benefit for the city in this harsh rental market. So I really appreciate Bill's gesture in making that 60% AMI. Another point that I want to make is that the city is yet to establish a formal transit-oriented district, which I know is something that's coming in the future. And this is very much a transit-oriented property, with the proposed building within walking distance and biking distance to the commuter rail station and to the Gloucester downtown and all of those conveniences. I think that as a community, we really need to encourage these sorts of smart growth opportunities that both add to our housing stock and also reduce car dependency, because the residents that are going to be living here are most likely not going to be needing their cars on a regular basis, if they have them at all. I did also make a couple of recommendations in my letter to support the project. And that is just, if that's something that is able to be addressed around improving livability for the tenants. I know Joel mentioned that they're not really studios, they're 1-bedrooms, but they don't have the divider that a 1-bedroom would have. I think maybe that is sort of addressing my question of a way to reduce the number of studios in favor of adding some 1-bedroom units. But also providing some secure storage areas, because these are going to be sort of transit oriented units where people are going to have large belongings like bicycles and baby carriages that might not fit in a studio apartment. So to make sure that, you know, residents have the necessary and secure storage for their personal belongings like that. And I don't know if it's possible, and maybe in the review study, you know, I know this is a modular construction, which is great. I like the idea of utilizing modular construction because I think it's more affordable. But instead of 2 stories, could it be 3 stories, for example, and trying to reduce the footprint of the building and add more green space around it with more outside livability? So those are just some suggestions, but if they can't be, you know, fit into the plan, that's no big deal. I still support this project. I support Mr. Wheat in this project and his efforts in making this affordable for the city of Gloucester. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to let everybody know, there will be multiple opportunities to speak. I won't be closing the public testimony portion of this for a few meetings. As more information comes in, feedback, any changes that are made, I want everyone to have the opportunity to weigh in the future. So don't feel this is your one chance. It isn't. Anyone else? I see no other hands raised. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, we'll take the opportunity to hear from anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application. Please raise your hand if you want to speak in opposition. If you're on a phone, you dial *9, or if you're on a device, you just press the raise hand button. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Our first person is Patty Amaral.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you for letting me speak tonight. It's called the Great Harbor Swamp. The water runs from-
Name and address for the
Patty
record to
Amaral,
begin.
sorry,
please.
Patty Amaral, 14 Myrtle Square.
Thank you.
It's called the Great Harbor Swamp and the water runs from Blackburn. We can't stop water, right? This area has been plagued by drainage issues since I moved in 23 years ago. I've cleaned this area called the Emerald Forest because of how wet it is. And for over 18 years. And yes, Joel, it has its negatives and it has trash in places. But to be fair, we really are forgotten until something like this comes up. And I have tried to work with the city about what goes on in this area. But it doesn't mean that it needs to be taken away or anything like that. It needs to be cared for, and it doesn't. So we try our best to do that. So let's remember that. So over 20 years ago, there was a multifaceted hub that was proposed here. It was stopped as we talked about where they were going to store the gasoline tanks. The land is not stable. It's peat filled. I think the building over there that Americal owned at one point has a lot of pilings on it, kind of like the school, the new school that's proposed. You just have to have a lot because the land is not stable. The map that Joel showed at his screen at the COMCOM meeting on October 6th is not the actual wetland map. When I went to the GIS maps, the city of Gloucester, it is a lot bigger than what he showed at his screen for that meeting. There are more questions than answers at this time, And I'm interested to hear all of it. And I hope that, you know, just like the school, the neighbors were silent. And look what happened. You might agree with it. I don't know, but I hate to have it happen here. Just because it doesn't look beautiful doesn't mean that it needs to be taken away. Years ago, I tried to work with the backyard growers and to make that a green space, because we only have 2 green spaces in our inner city. We have the Emerald Forest, which I try like hell to keep clean, but our ordinances aren't enforced or anything on that either. And we have Burns Field. So we really have to think about that when people are talking about housing all the time. It's, yeah, we need housing. I grew up in Riverdale Park. My mom was single. I get that. But we have to think about where we're putting it in this one area. Maplewood Ave right now, traffic, oh my goodness. I've seen in these 23 years what's happened. And the traffic on Maplewood Ave, we're like Washington Street now. And Mike is my neighbor. And, you know, we just really have to think hard again. And I probably said the same words for the school, but you know, we really do have to think hard when we're doing these projects and what it's going to do to everybody. And just because the neighbors are silent doesn't mean they're not there, because they're there. And I would also like to see, like for the school, if we are doing mailings and things, I would like to see it in multi-languages, because we're dealing with a very diverse neighborhood and we love it. This is our neighborhood and we want it to be cared for like everybody else's neighborhood in West Gloucester or Lanesville or East Gloucester, all of them. We deserve what everybody else gets. So please think about that in every vote that you take for this, because we do need housing, but we need it not at the expense of the neighbors and the people who live, and not even just the neighbors, because when you're talking about traffic, you're talking about quality of life. And that's a big thing for everybody. So thank you very much for letting me speak. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Betsy Works.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. For the record, my name is Betsy Works, and I am the trustee for Works Realty Trust, the landowners of 46 and 48 Maplewood Avenue. This land is directly adjacent to the lot of the proposed project and shares property lines. It is also where 7-Eleven and McDonald's have their businesses. We are not necessarily opposed to the project per se, and we are keeping an open mind to the merits of the project, but have many fact-based concerns about its potential impacts to our properties. We would like to begin a dialogue about our specific concerns addressing the serious drainage complications that exist at this site, as well as the many tight traffic flow features that are there. We do not want to see a creation on this atypical location that worsens conditions and negatively impacts the businesses and the neighborhood that is established there. We reserve the right to speak at the future public hearings on this project and look forward to a forthright and honest discussion concerning all the facts and conditions affecting these properties of the specific location on Maplewood Avenue. And we appreciate having the specific consultants come in to look at each one of these problems. It's something we've all been dealing with for years. We've had this property for over 55 years. We know the property well. Thank you.
Ms. Works, can I ask you a question? This is Catherine Schlichty. I apologize, my monitor has gone out, so my video's out, but you said that your property is the 7-Eleven and McDonald's properties?
That's right. Those are the lands. Yes.
Yeah. Well, is your property owner willing to work with this property owner about resolving drainage issues? Because I do believe some of it is also on your property as well.
We have tried. It hasn't worked. It's for a greater, longer discussion, and I'm willing to have that discussion with you. But we have tried to work with this, with Mr. Wheat, and it's not been successful at all. So, and we are working on the issues, the drainage issues for our properties, but we have his properties overflow of water coming onto our property.
Thank you. Thank you. Tracy O'Neill?
Hi, thank you. Tracy O'Neill, 12 Friend Street, Ward 2 City Councilor. I guess this is just for comments, not for questions, correct?
Either way, you can put it out there. We might not necessarily be able to answer you at this point, but
Okay, so this would be for Joel. At the very end of his presentation, he mentioned the word transient. Will there be transient people living there?
no, it'd be the opposite. They'd have to sign 1-year leases.
Okay, because Joel Favazza mentioned transient, so I just want to make sure I didn't miss something or whatever.
You did, Tracy, you did miss something because he was clear that transients wouldn't be allowed. All applicants would have to sign 1-year leases, and then they could go to a tenant at will if they wanted to stay longer than 1 year, but no subletting would be allowed, for Airbnb and stuff like that. So no, transients
yeah.
is not going to be
I mi-
promoted there.
Okay, I missed that whole thing. He said all that?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, sorry. Okay, so he mentioned the housing production plan that expired in June of this year. So that's expired. Also 8 of the 30 will be 60% of the median income, average income. Do we know what that is, what the AMI is in this area? Because I know we're categorized with Cambridge and
Yeah, it's published. We'll get those numbers and talk about them at a
All right.
future meeting,
okay.
just to be
he al-
clear.
Okay, he also mentioned that, so 8 of them are gonna be 60% medium income. And then he
Right.
kept saying that all of them will be affordable. Does he know the pricing of them? Does he know the rent fee for them to say that they are going to be affordable? And if so, what is that?
Well, he'll respond to that at some point, so during his rebuttal,
Okay,
which probably won't come, but we'll get that information out in the meantime.
okay,
Again, it's not, he doesn't have to say what he's gonna charge for rent. I guess
Right.
he's meeting the 25, he's actually exceeding the 20% requirement.
right, I understand that.
I think Tracy's comments are, Tracy, I just want to support your comments, though. I think her comments are fair because he consistently talked about small A affordable. So
Yeah.
he's making that presentation. So I think we can't demand that he tell us, beyond the 60 AMI, but he doesn't get to advertise fairly unless he tells a little bit more, would be my opinion. So I'd
Yeah,
support
in
Tracy's
his-
concerns.
I know he mentioned it somewhat in his narrative that came with the
Yes.
application.
Yes.
So yeah, we will be getting that info.
Okay,
No
thanks. All right, I still have some more questions, sorry. I looked at the map from the city and a portion of that proposed building is in the buffer zone of the swamp, right? So part of it is swamp and part of it is a buffer zone. And a portion of that building is in the buffer zone of the wetland. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, but so again, as he stated, the Conservation Commission will still issue a notice of intent with conditions, and that's under their purview.
Okay,
So if they're not satisfied with how it's going to be dealt with, they won't issue their notice of intent.
okay. And I think one last thing. I'm 63 years old. And when I was 10 years old, we moved to Myrtle Square. And back then, the house at the end on the corner of Myrtle Square and Maplewood Ave used to flood when I was 10 years old. When I was 18, I worked for Charlie Works at Works Chevrolet Olds. And the building where the nail salon is and the car wash is, the nail salon was the showroom. And the car wash was the repair shop. The 7-Eleven or whatever store it is, 7-Eleven, was the body shop. And when it rained, the guys in the body shop got on a dinghy and rode to the service area for mug up. So I don't think it's just the pump. When I was a kid, Whistle Stop Way was a footpath, and it did stop at that railroad storage. They used to store the old railroad cars there, and we used to jump them, right? Run and jump, run and jump. And there was no path there. And there was a footpath here and there, but there was definitely no road. So I don't know how it got paved or whatever, but it was known as Noss Lumber. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember that. My father told me, right? And it was Noss's swamp. So it was a swamp. So it is wetlands, and it shows in one of the city's maps as a swamp and as a buffer zone. And I just wanted to mention the body shop guys in the dinghy, and they never bottomed out. They never hit. I mean, 3 or 4 of them, big guys, they row away, it was hilarious, but they didn't want to get wet. So it's been a huge problem. And like I said, I know the woman at 33 Maplewood Ave. She called me telling me that her house floods during a rainstorm, and I know it does because it flooded 50 odd years ago. So it's a big problem, and it's a swamp. But anyway, that's it. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you. Anyone else tonight wishing to speak in opposition, please raise your hand. Sybil. Can we bring in Sybil? There we go.
It only let me put her as a panelist because it says she's using an older Zoom.
Okay, that's all right.
Yes.
Apologize. So I am Sybil Militello. I live at 33 Myrtle Square. I am 3rd generation owning this property. Originally, when my grandparents owned this property at 33 Myrtle Square, the property was dry. There were buildings behind here in the swamp, but it was filled wetlands. They moved the original house that was here from Myrtle Square when they were redoing from Middle Street, I assume, like, was to do with the boulevard or something. So it was dry at one point, but it was because the land was filled. I do still have flooding. I have flooding when there's bad storms and when there's not so bad storms. The drainage is inadequate. Down in that property back there, it does still flood. Our swampland doesn't hold water like it used to either, so it's full of sediment. There used to be a drainage pipe that would go straight through the swamp, but conservation wouldn't let that be reused. So McNiff put a pipe that went around the swamp, which is not large enough to support the area. So when it continues from our area down to the area behind us, it's just going to meet up with more water. I'm not necessarily against the project, but I do need the traffic and the drainage taken care of. I don't want to wait and see. I want to know that it's taken care of before the project proceeds. Thank you for listening, and have a good night.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition tonight? Okay, I see none so far, so I will suspend the public testimony period, continue that as we will this hearing. one question for Mr. Sambo. So will we have any feedback in 2 weeks from any of the city groups?
I'm not sure. I'd like to think we'd have some. Some will be easier than others. But I will, again, on the first of the week, contact all the departments and try to remind them we need their feedback. And if we need to meet to talk about it, we'll do so. I'll set up a meeting. So we'll try to get some information back to you at that time.
So I would think we would continue till October 27th. Again, just to bring everyone up to date on any new information we've obtained, and time permitting, if anyone else wishes to speak about the project at that time, we'll take some testimony. Attorney Favazza, I assume we're going to hold off on rebuttal until somewhere down the end. And so with that in mind, I will entertain a motion to continue this hearing to October 27th.
I move.
Make a mo- Yeah, I'll make that motion to continue to October 27th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to continue to October 27th. Roll call vote.
Ms. Slickby,
Yes.
Mr. Nyman,
I think you said Nyman, sorry, yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Gilliland. You leave? Mr. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
Yes. So we'll continue to the 27th. I'm going to ask Attorney Egan to come back on and see if there's any more feedback or questions we have for her at this time. I know she's going to hire counsel to assist us.
So is the, Suzanne, Michael Nyman, so the assistant that you're talking about, so I have a memory when we did the YMCA, that we had somebody that sort of helped us walk through sort of the draft and the final draft of all the paperwork and stuff. Is that what you're talking about or something different, Suzanne?
That is what I'm talking about. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
I found her to be extremely helpful, yes.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, so this attorney who I've contacted is it's a different attorney than you're used to working with, but that I have worked with before, and that he's very knowledgeable in comprehensive permits, so he'll be very helpful. And I don't have him completely retained yet, so I'm not going to talk about who he is specifically, but we will have somebody who's an expert in the field.
Okay, good.
Great. Any other instructions for us at this point, or are we on target here?
No, I think we're on target, and I think that what we'll do in the in between this meeting and your next meeting is work with Attorney Favazza to get the consultants on board and to get those consultant fees into an escrow account, so we can move this forward.
Great, thank you for doing that.
Yep.
Any other comments, or if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Made and seconded, roll call vote required.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Slickby,
Yes.
I think he said you, Joe.
Oh, yes, sorry, it cut out.
He did cut out.
So we are
Sorry.
officially adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully, next month, we only have a few hearings also, so we'll be able to do this at some point. If it got a lot of public testimony, we might limit it, but it's 9 o'clock and we're good today, so I think that's a good trend. Try to keep to that.
All right, have a good night, all.
I will, Mr. Chairman, depending on how many reviews from departments we can get back on what that looks like, and that'll depend on the number. Actually, we already have the number of meetings for next week, right? We have the agenda, right?
Yeah, we already have that out, yeah.
Okay. All right, never mind. Thank you.
All righty, great. Good night, everybody. Thanks. for
Good night, all.
being here.
Good
Good night.